G'day everyone, VirtualConquer85 here, and welcome to the third and final part of the History of Continuum. So, continuing where we left off in Part 2, we had just released the full version of 1.1 for Continuum. With this version came better FPS, new looking 2D clouds, a few minor bug fixes here and there. But unfortunately there was one big problem with 1.1, is that during its development I actually somehow messed up the Specular during when it was raining, which led to the development of 1.1.5. So in November 2015, version 1.1.5 was getting ready for release. Along with fixing the Specular for when it rains, there was a few other adjustments as well made to the sunrise and sunsets, stained glass no longer casting shadows, increased time that took for the ground to become dry after raining, new look to glowstones, and 2D and 3D clouds taken longer to clear up after raining. On the 22nd December 2015 we released the 1.1.5 hotfix version. At the start of January 2016, Optifine released a new version for the 1.8.9, which included shaders built into Optifine. Along with that, he also added in a new feature, which was the ability to have shader options. So on January the 5th, we released a sneak peek with these included shader options. Along with the 1.8.9 shader options, we're also able to give each world dimension their own fully dedicated, rewritten shader. During this, it was actually thanks to Robobo1221 for actually helping us rewrite the shaders for the Nether and the End world. Also during this period, Robobo also helped us with quite a few bug fixes for the shader. The 7th of January, Joey actually started up a full YouTube channel called the Continuum Shader channel. With this channel, he was doing tutorials for making GLSL shaders for Minecraft. On the 8th of January, we released the preview version for the 1.8.9 Optifine version that included the shader options. Towards the end of January, Joey and the other Continuum members were trying desperately to get coloured stained glass shadows working, and for the most part they actually did get it working. Unfortunately, that did come with some performance costs and other bugs. Sometime between the end of January and the start of February, we got contacted by another shader developer called Bruce Knows How, the developer of the acid shaders. Once joining, he actually implemented a new infinite shadows maps for us for Continuum. While Bruce and Joey worked on the new extended shadow maps, Joey pointed out to me that the caustics in the water were actually different to the parallax waves, in that they were both going in opposite directions, so they weren't technically correct, which led me to start working on the water again, which started to lead towards new and better parallax waves. Towards the end of February, Joey and Bruce had almost fully implemented the new extended shadows, or basically infinite shadows, which went as far as the render distance, and would just iron out a few bugs getting ready for a release. Along with the new infinite shadows provided by Bruce Knows How, Joey and the other Continuum members also started work on a new global illumination. This new global illumination wasn't actually ready for the release of Preview 2, but there was some part of it implemented upon release. During the development of Preview 2, I personally also got to work on optimizing volumetric clouds, adding in new parallax waves, and adding in displacement of the water, aka waving water, along with a new temporary fix for underground lighting and a few new shader options. So really, Preview 2 only really came about during production because of Bruce Knows How's infinite shadows and Joey pointing out the new water with the caustics. On the 2nd of March 2016, we released the Preview 2 version for Continuum. Unfortunately, it wasn't the correct one that was supposed to be released. The following day we corrected this by releasing the proper version of the shader. After the release of Continuum 1.8.9 Preview 2, Joey and the other Continuum members got back into trying to create PBR for Continuum. Unfortunately though, with the new PBR being implemented, any existing texture pack that had Specular files would not work with this new version anymore. With each passing day, they made extra progress with PBR. Around the middle of March, we had a bit of a group discussion about the shader, where I brought up that I would like to have added dynamic weather into the shader. It's something that I've been throwing around for quite a few years, but had no idea on how to implement it. After looking through texture packs, I noticed that the moon had 8 separate textures, basically one for each separate day. I mentioned this to the team and they thought that it could be done using the day and night cycle. I then contacted the creator of Optifine to ask if there was such a feature implemented into the shaders mod, which actually there was. After gaining some more information, we were able to add in the dynamic weather system. During the early development of the new dynamic weather system, I was the one in charge of actually coding it in, and for the most part I got it kind of working. But unfortunately, due to my limitations on the coding knowledge, I was only able to go so far, and Joey actually ended up finishing it off. And on the 29th of March, we had it in and working and released a little teaser video showing how it worked. On the 30th of March 2016, I made an announcement that I was no longer going to be actively working on the shader anymore. There were several reasons behind this decision that I made, mostly due to lack of free time, and that I had a lot of other things on my plate, such as doing my diploma course, working on a new project, and family time. But not only that, but my knowledge of coding had almost come to its limits. With the rest of the team ploughing on ahead with new features, there wasn't a whole lot for me to actually actively work on anyway at this point in time. Straight after my announcement, Joey did make sure to let everyone know that the Continuum is still being developed on in my absence, and that they were still working towards new features and hopefully new optimizations for the shader. On the 2nd of April 2016, Joe was actually able to code in HBAO into Continuum, along with teasing a new secret feature that they'll be adding pretty soon. The 4th of April 2016, Joey and the Continuum team were able to fix the normals in 1.9, bringing back proper parallax occlusional mapping. On the 8th of April 2016, they're also able to bring back the mobs flashing when taking damage. 15th of April, they announced that they were working with Part3 making true PBR textures. So on the 15th of April, they publicly announced that they were fully working with the creator of the Part3 True PBR texture pack that added true PBR textures along with POM textures. 24th of April saw our first 1,000 likes for the Continuum Shader Facebook page. On the 2nd of May 2016, the Continuum team released the 1.2 version of Continuum. In this 1.2, they released the volumetric light, the new global illumination, improved PCSS and the PBR, along with the dynamic weather. Unfortunately though, 1.2 PBR version was a disaster on release. Almost all AMD cards did not work with this shader, and even some Nvidia cards were also experiencing a lot of bugs with the 1.2 release. Joey then announced that the 1.2 is broken and that they're currently working on a fix. It was around this time that I actually contacted the team asking what had happened, and the 1.2 was actually a fully rewritten version of Continuum that they were working on. They then announced that no one should download the 1.2 at this time, as it was very broken and they made a lot of mistakes within the code. After the bad release of the 1.2 version of Continuum, I decided to come back and release a non-PBR classic version of Continuum. During my time off of the Continuum team, I was actually still adding little bits and pieces to the previous 1.8.9 Preview 2 version. Mostly for myself, as I wasn't too keen on using a new Part3 pack, and thought that the Continuum team may use this if they can't get the PBR version to work with existing texture packs. So on the 2nd of May 2016, I released the 1.2 non-PBR classic version of Continuum. The classic version was pretty much the updated version of the 1.8.9 Preview 2, which included the new POM support that the team had been working on, volumetric light, the new global illumination that Joey and the other team have been working on, the new dynamic weather, HBAO, a larger range of shader options, along with a few other little things I had been adding in my free time, such as light jitter to torches and glowstones, added the shifting rain in, and added a bunch of new lens flares, plus several other minor fixes here and there. On the 11th of May 2016, the Continuum team released the 1.2.1 PBR version of Continuum. This version had fixed a lot of the problems that had been in the previous version, mainly allowing the AMD card users to use the shader once again. It was around this time that Joey and Bruce decided to shift away from Continuum and start on an entirely new shader. On the 12th of May 2016, a YouTuber by the name of Captain Sparkles made a video on Continuum, going over how much he liked it. On the 12th of May, the Continuum team released the full version of the 1.2.1 PBR version, which was added to the Continuum Shader website. A lot of the bugs have been fixed, although still quite a few were present within the shader. On the 12th of May 2016, I announced that there was going to be a 1.2.1 version of the non-PBR Continuum. Considering there was still quite a few bugs within the PBR version, and that the PBR version didn't work well with a lot of other existing texture packs that had speculars in them, I continued to work on the non-PBR version, adding in a huge range of extra shader options. 17th of May 2016, Joey showed off some new PBR modeling within their secret project, which was soon to be announced. On the 25th of May 2016, Joshua, the creator of Ultra, showed off a few screenshots showing the difference between Continuum and the soon to be announced eBin shader that Joey and Bruce have been working on, showing off the new POM and a new method of PBR. On the 27th of May 2016, Joey released an update to the PBR version of the shader called 1.2.2. This fixed the issue with the latest NVIDIA drivers crashing the entire shader. For the most part, it was just myself working on the non-PBR version of Continuum, as that Joey was still working here and there on the PBR version of Continuum, but mostly working on the new shader with Bruce. Now, I was hoping that the NVIDIA drivers would be fixed with newer versions. Unfortunately, they weren't, so I had to follow suit and release a 1.2.2 version of Continuum with a new fix for the driver bug. On the 14th of June 2016, during a bit of my spare time, I actually came up with a new low quality depth of field and quickly added it to Continuum. This was basically added to the existing 1.2.2 version of Continuum, and it was just dubbed the low quality depth of field version. 28th of June 2016, Sonic Ether released Zeus V11 with a whole lot of new features, such as proper rendering of transparent objects, stained glass shadows, a new look to the volumetric clouds, and the inclusion of volumetric light and water caustics. 29th of June 2016, Joey announced that they were now working on an all-new shader with Bruce Knows How called eBin. In this post, he also mentioned that Continuum's code was an absolute mess and had gotten to the point where it was almost impossible to fully clean up and optimize. Now, what he was saying was partially true to the non-PBR version, but he was mostly talking about the recoded PBR version of Continuum, and that for the most part he wasn't going to be working on the PBR version of Continuum any further and was going to be dedicating all his time to the new eBin shader. On the 5th of July 2016, I began work on the new Continuum 1.3 version, where I was going to be adding in a lot of the new features that was in Sonic Ether's V11 shader. Continuum 1.3 would prove to be the most hardest upgrade to Continuum yet. The somewhat forward rendering code that he added in to get proper transparency of stained glass, and adding in the new coloured stained glass shadows, would prove to be incredibly difficult to be adding into the Continuum shader. By the 13th of July, I'd successfully added in all these new features and released the first preview version. On the 27th of July 2016, I was actually able to add support for the old GTX 500 series for Continuum, as previously the GTX 500 series cards did not play well with the Continuum shaders. 31st of July 2016, I released the Preview 2 version of Continuum 1.3, which just added in some new performance updates, some small bug fixes, and a much cleaner look to the shader options. So on September 17th, 2016, I released the last preview version for Continuum 1.3. Along with this version, I also released the 1.2.2 Special Edition, which was just an updated version of the 1.2.2 version. Now the reason behind this was that I was still unable to get the better GI and the better extended shadows working in Continuum 1.3. Because of the new forward rendering, along with the new shadows to get the coloured stained glass shadows working, both of these features I was simply unable to get working in Continuum 1.3, which brings us to the present date of doing this video. So what's in the future for Continuum? Well, with most of the Continuum team now working on newer and different projects, such as Death Raid moving on to his Nova renderer, which he wants to update the GLSL shader side of it from version 120 up to 450, which is pretty close to the Vulkan standard. Doing this, he hopes to include newer features and open up more possibilities of better performance when using shaders in Minecraft. And Joey and Bruce Knows How moving on to their new eBin shader. As for myself, I've actually been working on a project over the past 6 to 8 months now, and I released a little teaser for you guys on the 1st of October 2016, and I'm super excited to actually announce it to you all right now, is that I've actually been working on my own fully fledged 3D game that is going to be called Enchanted Blades, Ahriman's Black Death. I'm also thinking of possibly calling it Enchanted Blades, Warriors of Destiny. Now this game is going to be a hack and slash 3D game set in sort of like medieval times. At this stage it's still in pre-alpha production. Most of the gameplay elements are in and working. Now at the moment there still is a lot of placeholder stuff within the game, and as development progresses, I will be swapping it out for higher quality sort of textures and stuff. So yeah, I'm really excited to be actually able to finally tell you guys what I've been working on. With this, there will also be a new Facebook page that I'll be starting up, which will be called Star Rich Games, which is what I'll be putting the game under, so it's like my company name. And I'll also be uploading another video pretty much straight after this one with a more in-depth look to this game, if you're interested. So back to the question of what's the future of Continuum. Well, with the rest of the Continuum team now working on other projects and their own new shader, and myself working on my own fully fledged game, I'm sorry to say that this is the end for Continuum. That there won't be any more actively worked on versions for the shader. Yes, it's a bit sad to be announcing this, but Continuum has been worked on now for the past almost 3 years, and it has had a pretty good run. Now, I'm only saying this that it is more for the foreseeable future, that there won't be any more actively updated versions for Continuum, as that perhaps myself or the other team members may come back and start actively working on Continuum again. But for now, this is the end of the road. We will still be actively on Facebook and on the Facebook page, answering any questions, anyone's problems. If there's any more driver updates that break the shader, we will come back and release, like the 1.3.1, 1.3.2 versions to rectify any problems that new drivers may cause. If you're still very heavily into Minecraft shaders, Joey and Bruce's eBin shader would probably be the best one to keep your eyes on, as that they're doing remarkable things with that shader. I'd like to take this time to thank all the people that have supported us over the years, because without your support, Continuum wouldn't have got to where it is today. A big thank you to you all for supporting not just myself, but the Continuum team as a whole over the past 3 years as we've been working on the shader. And a big special thanks to some of the very, very early people that started supporting me on the Continuum Shader. Also want to do a big thanks and shout out to Robbo of Robobo1221 Shaders for helping us out over the past year or so. Also want to do a big thanks to Catman, who originally gave us the code for the first lens flare that was added into Continuum. Also a big thanks to Killian, who added in the latest lens flare for Continuum, as credit for him wasn't truly properly given. So a big shout out and thanks to him. Also a big thanks to Chocopic for helping us over the years with a few things such as shadows and helping us get in the 2D God Rays. And of course a big thanks to Sonic Ether, aka Cody, for allowing us to distribute Continuum Shaders. And it is because of Sonic Ether that led me to making up my own game. I also want to do a shout out to Part3 Pro for doing several videos for us on Continuum. So yeah, that brings us to the end of the History of Continuum Part 3. It's really been an experience working on Continuum over these past 3 years, which has also led me to the passion of working on making my own game. And I'm really excited about it, and I hope to see a lot of you follow me to my new Facebook page, and that we can really get behind this one as well and get this game up and going. So yeah, I hope that you still continue to enjoy the Continuum Shader and never know what the future may hold. So with that, another big thanks to you all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye bye.